in terms of the quality of food that we eat. I just think it's so easy for people to get separated from themselves when they are eating certain foods that they don't realize are making them feel a certain way. My goal is to help a generation of women who have been raised in this diet culture to balance their hormones so they can feel like themselves and look like themselves.
Have you ever seen someone living an amazing life and thought to yourself, how'd they get so lucky? If you are not currently living a life that's on your terms, a life by your design, then this podcast series is for you. This is the More Confidence with Luna Guy podcast, and in this special season, I'm going to be interviewing people who are living a life by design, living a life on their terms. And I'm going to find out once and for all if it is just luck or there's something more going on. Let's dive in.
I got to say, Chelsea, a chocolate lover's guide to weight loss without all that cardio and fad diets sounds absolutely crazily attractive to me. And I'm sure that there's so many of us that is the truth there. I want to dive into how you became a corporate dropout. I want to dive into a bunch of your experience of big high paying jobs into following your own dreams. But I got to know about this chocolate lover's guide to weight loss. Tell us about it.
It is one of my favorite things that I use with some of my health coaching clients. It is essentially an overview of all the methodologies that I use to get women very quick weight loss results to make them feel good, feel alive, lose weight, especially around the belly, since I specialize mostly in hormone balance. And one of the biggest imbalances that I see with women is the belly weight that comes on. So I basically put together this formula where they can keep the chocolate in, clean up other parts of their diet, make some swaps to caffeine timing, and get some really amazing results.
Wow. Caffeine timing, swaps. And I'm not sure, you've been following me for a little while, but you probably wouldn't know the vast history of the work that I've done. And for those listeners who have been following me for a long time, I've been in the business of body positivity and in terms of self-love and all that kind of stuff. What's your viewpoint? We have industries, health coaches, or the industry of fitness and like health often, in my experience, promotes, like that we need to be skinnier in order to be better. Where do you stand with that?
So growing up, I was a dancer. So I've been steeped in the diet culture since I was very young. I did ballet. And then I transitioned into more contact sports and I started developing more muscle and I became a little bit too, quote, big, unquote, to dance with all these really skinny girls. So from a really young age, I was exposed to a lot of this and had a lot of very complex feelings around food. And I think it's really interesting. I'm obviously from America, but I live in Australia, and I just see such a big difference in food supply, in body culture, in even in terms of the quality of food that we eat. I just think it's so easy for people to get separated from themselves when they are eating certain foods that they don't realize are making them feel a certain way. So my goal is to help a generation of women who have been raised in this diet culture to balance their hormones so they can feel like themselves and look like themselves and have a truly healthy body, healthy mind so that they can make a bigger dent in the universe.
Oh, yes, because how often are we sluggish? I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day about this, that very often we don't know how good we could feel because we're used to feeling the way that we are now. So how much does our mindset, how much does our thinking and our beliefs play in, well, your experience of working with your clients, how much does that play out in the work that you do?
It's everything. And I find that when people start with what they're eating and how they treat themselves, everything changes with their brain. So I have a lot of clients who say that they have no brain fog after a week. They are feeling more energized. They're sleeping better. Some people have chosen to transition off of antidepressants that they thought they'd be on in their entire life. I'm not a medical professional, so I'm not curing any medical diseases, but this is very much a result that women have when they balance their hormones, when they figure out what's going on with their gut, because gut and mental health are also inextricably tied.
It often, for me personally, I can feel like a bit of a minefield. Like I've gone down these kind of pathways of, like gut health, going down a pathway of, that hormone balance, all that kind of stuff. It can feel really super overwhelming. And I think that even for myself and for many other women out there would feel so just, it's too hard basket. How do we overcome that thinking of its too hard basket?
I always say that people need to assemble their team. And what I mean by that is you need your doctor, but you also need a health coach. You also need, your massage therapist. You need that full team to really assist you along the way and give you the best practices and the tools that actually work. There's so much noise, especially because wellness has become such a massive industry. You don't really know where to start, and you get targeted with so many different Instagrams for different supplements, and there's so much on the market right now. So having someone cut through that for you, if you're not getting the answers that you want or not getting the results you want, can be really helpful for some people.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but it's where my natural curiosity kind of goes. Like, what's your cut through? Like how in that, saturated market where we are just being thrown, like, who is it? V-Shred? And maybe I'm just setting YouTube alarm bells off right now by even mentioning that name. And some people would know about it, some people wouldn't. But V-Shred seems to be like this hormone thing, like system to help, like match your weight to your hormone, all that kind of stuff, the way you should be eating, that kind of stuff. I've been down that path, and it feels like a really, really, really good marketing funnel. How is maybe what someone like you any different, and how can we discern the difference?
When it comes to supplements, they should be very much personalized for you, and you should be working with a practitioner on those, right? So just taking my story as an example, I suffered with a number of different hormonal issues, a number of different gut issues, SIBO, PCOS, type 2 diabetes that I didn't know I had. I just thought it was normal to always be hungry. I thought it was normal to be tired after meals. I thought it was normal to have demonic sugar cravings and to not fall asleep until 2 a.m. And so for me, I spent years trying different supplements, falling for the different gimmicks, working with different people, different doctors, and trying to get answers. And this was the approach that worked for me. And so after healing myself through kind of integrative health and doing very, very targeted lab testing on my own hormones in my gut, that's where I started to get answers, and that's where I started to get results. And as soon as I saw the results, I realized there was something to this, and there's just a lot of information that women are not getting.
Yeah, and we're kind of led down the garden path. And I suppose that Chocolate Lover's Guide, by the way, that's a freebie. You can go get it from Chelsea's. Just go to her Instagram. Everything's in the show notes. Because I know so many of you are like, hang on a second, Luna, you just dropped a proverbial carrot in front of us, but didn't give us anything. It's a freebie. Go check it out. I feel like we are, maybe sent down a bit of a garden path. So you having had lived experience for yourself is an incredible, powerful tool because you've lived it, right? What was the catalyst moment, if there was one, from, oh no, it's normal. It's normal to have demonic sugar cravings. It's normal to feel really tired after my food. It's normal to not be functioning this way. And it often is normal, common at the very least. It is often common. People talk about this all the time. What shifted for you in your mind first before you even started going down this path of healing yourself?
I think it's interesting that you say it's common, it's common, but it's not normal. And that's what I typically tell people is we've all become so steeped in this that we accept feeling less than our best and think that that's just, I'm just a mom, I'm just getting older, I'm just insert whatever here. And at the end of the day, your body was made to be so incredibly strong and resilient and energized. And when you learn the exact tools of how to treat yourself, how to balance your hormones, your life can change so quickly. So for me, for example, like I moved to Australia when I was about 28 years old. I was living in Melbourne at the time. So
You say it right. Oh my God, I had to interrupt you. Wow. You said Melbourne. I know all of our Aussies will very much appreciate that. Sorry, Chelsea, carry on.
Moved to Melbourne at 28.
Melbourne.
So I moved here for a job. I was working in corporate at the time, heading up a digital team at Adidas. And when I got here, I was working, I was commuting out to Mulgrave 45 minutes a day, sitting in an office for 9 hours in back-to-back meetings, putting out fires. And then I'm a spin instructor on the side. That's kind of my side hustle. So I would go teach 1 or 2 spin classes, all the while not properly fueling myself, having so much sugar just to keep me awake, multiple coffees, and then, collapsing into bed, but being so exhausted, but not able to sleep. And this level of stress and hustle and chronic, what we call high cortisol in my practice, which is just a stress hormone that basically is your get up and go. It's your survival mode. I was just running on cortisol for years and didn't realize it. And that's, I think a lot of that comes from being in an American corporate culture as well, but it's just kind of the way I had always operated. And it's interesting, Luna, because when Melbourne lockdown hit, I was forced to slow down. So I was just this wheel that was spinning incessantly. And as soon as the wheel stopped, my body just crashed. And I knew that I needed to heal myself. I knew there was part of me that was not operating as it should. And I kind of always knew that, like in college when I would travel, I played sports in college. And when we would travel for games, I would be laying in bed just awake until 3 or 4 a.m. And everyone around me on my team would be sleeping. So I just knew that people were having a normal life and people were sleeping and people were not having these crazy cravings and weight gain and all these things. So I realized there was a problem with me and I had to take ownership over my own healing because I wasn't getting the answers from doctors and I wasn't really making progress listening to podcasts. So I had to really take it into my own hands to heal myself.
Yeah, you realize that the problem was you.
Yep.
I think that there comes in any kind of personal growth story, be that an internal one around confidence, self-love, authenticity, the way that I work, be that in the relationship that you might be in for the relationship coach, your health with the health coach, there has to come that moment, do you think, where we go like, yes, enough is enough, but secondary to that, I'm the one in charge of this. Like, I'm responsible. Is that kind of the conclusion that you came to, Chelsea, of like, it's in my hands. If I don't make the change, then it's not going to.
Radical responsibility. It's the only way. And that's what I always tell people. It's very easy to stay in victim mode when you're going through some kind of health issue. And so many people choose to stay stuck, but that's a choice. There are solutions. There are things. But what I always talk to my clients about, for example, is what's the serve and limit of the illness you're choosing to hold on to or the situation you're choosing to hold on to? Like, how is that serving you? Because it is serving you in some way if you're continuing to choose it. And how is it limiting you? So for me, it was serving me because I was overpacking my days and I was overperforming at work and I was getting promoted, but I also felt terrible. I was grumpy with my team. I was irritable. I was not sleeping well. I just didn't feel good. And so I had to really evaluate, like, can I just continue to operate at this frequency or do I need to make an adjustment?
And I think that conversation is so wise for so many listeners right now. How long can you keep operating at this level? Be that in your health, be that in your wealth, be that in your relationship, your work, your relationship with yourself. How much longer can you sustain this? Because at some point in time, something's got to give, right?
Always.
Yeah. You mentioned, when we were talking off air, that in your freshman year of college, so I presume that's the first one for us Australians who don't necessarily know, that's your first year of college, is that right? And I'll translate, it's also university. So in your first year of uni, your freshman year of college, your younger brother collapsed on the football field and was airlifted for emergency brain surgery. He obviously did make it, but with debilitating disabilities. How old were you when that happened, and how you said that was the moment that your nervous system dysregulated highly, and you had to move so fast you didn't have the need to feel, right? That if you just kept going and kept pushing. How old were you when that happened, and what was the impact on the next however long of your life in the lead up to before you started to heal?
I was 18 years old at the time. So first year of uni, I was playing college field hockey down at a university many hours away. So probably the equivalent of, Sydney to WA. And I just got this call before this game that he had collapsed and we didn't really know what was going on. And I just remember viscerally how that felt in my body to be not only disconnected from a family emergency, but hearing about it by association from a friend, not knowing if he was going to make it, not being able to get the information. And my stress hormones were just so high. I remember that was the first night that I stopped sleeping. And I didn't really sleep very well from that day on. It was maybe 3 to 4 hours a night at the most. And I thought there was just nothing I could do. I took sleep tablets. I tried to do all the calming activities, and my cortisol was just so high that that's
Did you know it was your cortisol that was high? Like at that point at 18, freshman year, did you know that that was your cortisol and they were running high at that point? Or was that just, you only can see that in hindsight?
Just hindsight. I had no idea what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
And that's, people don't understand the physiology of a traumatic or a stressful event, right? And so, I see so many clients who come in with absolute burnout or autoimmune diseases or, so many different issues that they have struggled with. And when we look at the timelines for these things, it's often, oh, well, when did this start? And they're like, oh, well, when we got a divorce 2 years ago, or when I lost my first child, or, when I miscarried. It's always something. And so there's this undeniable connection between body and emotion that I see in my own journey and with my clients. And so it's really important to unravel that kind of in parallel while we are also rebalancing the hormones, doing all the, we call not biohacking work, because I don't really like using the word biohacking because it kind of insinuates that you're working against biology. I like working against biology and just getting your body back into balance where it should be, right?
Biobalancing.
Exactly. So for me, no, I didn't know it was cortisol. I just knew I wasn't sleeping. And I, my cycle became irregular and I never had cramps growing up, not once. And all of a sudden I had I felt like my back was breaking. It was so bizarre. And so looking back at all the issues I had now, it's so clear to me what was wrong. And I just wish I could go back to that little girl and be like, do this and take this and stop eating this. And I could have solved my problem so much easier. So that's why I feel so strongly about this, because this stuff is not difficult. You just need to know how to do it.
Yeah, and when I think about it, like very often we can look at healthy people, and I know that I have done in many previous iterations of myself, a long time ago, see someone who's healthy, someone who's vital, who's got energy, and it's lucky for some. Like that's the feeling has been, oh, well, lucky for you, Chelsea, you grew up as a dancer and you were in athletics, so therefore, it's really easy for us to just overlook all the work that you actually do and have done to come to this point. So I just want to really highlight that this hasn't been something that has come easy, in the sense that it wasn't just a natural occurrence. That's right?
That's right. Yeah, it's something that it happens so frequently, but when you don't have the wherewithal to know what's happening, it can just become unraveled so fast. And that's why it's very different. Some people can keep burning the candle at both ends longer than others, right? It totally depends on your genetics, your self-care, what you're eating, how
We've
you're supplementing.
just lost your audio for a second here, Chelsea.
Oh no.
So I'm just checking in. We've just had a little moment. She was talking about burning the candle at both ends, and then snap.
We
lost you. We lost you for some bizarre reason. Our audio just dropped out, so I'm just going to tune on back in with Chelsea as she kind of goes with audio here.
Are we back?
Just sort of seeing what's happening. I think. You know what I love about this show, for all the audience that is here doing the thing, you will just, this is life. And I could go ahead and I could do some post-production and edit things and do a whole bunch of bits and pieces. But the reality is, at the end of the day, this is life. And I don't want to edit out the parts in our life where we think that we are, that aren't socially acceptable. When we have experiences that we think that, it's not socially acceptable, we shouldn't put in the error because someone might think that's unprofessional. For me, the reality is that life unfolds. Life is an unfoldment of ups and downs. And if we overlook all of the troubles, so to speak, if we overlook the troubles, and all I do is produce a show for you that is completely clean, that has no errors, that has no hiccups in it, I kind of feel like I'm doing you a bit of a disservice as my audience, right? Like, here is my audience. I'm doing you a disservice by not showing you that life happens and we can actually continue to roll with things. So I'm just seeing now, I think that perhaps Chelsea and I are back on.
we back?
And it could have been my end from this. Just talk for a moment, Chelsea.
How are we going? Can you hear this?
No, I still don't seem to have Chelsea for a reason. But you see, this is the thing. I'm going to, in just a moment, watch now. Talk for me, Chelsea.
How are we? Is it working? Checking?
Yes, we have Chelsea. We have Chelsea back live in the lounge. And I'm actually, the funny thing that might have happened here is what I'm thinking is that my headset dropped out for whatever reason.
Oh.
So maybe all the audience could hear you talking loud and clear, but I couldn't, which would be hilarious if that was the case, that all the audience members hears me banging on. So you can come back to using your mic here, Chelsea. I think this one was working really well. You're OG. Thank you for trying to solve this. There is a really good reason why I want to keep this kind of stuff in this podcast, my guests, my listeners, because exactly for that reason. Life is not perfect. Things go wrong. And can we handle it with grace? Can we still carry on? Can we stop trying to be freaking perfect and actually be real and be human?
Unedited and raw,
Speak
baby.
of it. Unedited and raw. That's exactly right, because that's life. That is life. And if everything's polished all the time, we have this perception that, oh my gosh, I couldn't ever do a podcast, or I couldn't, become a corporate dropout, or I couldn't change my life because I don't know how to get it right.
That's
live and ready for you here right now. You can see that for everybody, mistakes happen, errors happen, life happens. We move on with it. It's beautiful. You were saying to me, Chelsea, before we had that little divergence of a lesson, if I would take it, about burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, I think
some people can keep going with that.
Yeah, it totally depends. I see some people are able to sustain that level of stress and demand on their body longer than others. And it totally depends on age, sometimes even gender. Sometimes, some people are just born with a little bit more life force than someone else for whatever reason. And so some are just more sensitive to stressors. And so what we do is what the benefit of doing like functional medicine lab tests, for example, is you can laser target, you can see exactly what's going on and kind of work backwards just towards someone's unique biomarkers, which is what I think is so exciting because you really fuse together the science, the protocols that are just clinically proven to be able to, get someone up from burnout, get them out of bed, get them, get the belly fat off the middle, get the brain fog out. There's just so much you can do that people don't know about.
Yes. And it really does require us to, at some point, make a choice to go, hang on a second, I don't want to keep living like this anymore.
Yep, exactly.
What I think I asked you before around the catalyst of it, you were burning candle at both ends. You were, you're in lockdown. That forced you to slow down. So that was really was that the beginning of the healing journey for you? Like properly, I feel like you were maybe taking supplements and realizing that maybe things weren't great, but the real inner work of this, of really, your functional medicine and biomarkers and testing, is that when that happened, like during lockdown?
That's exactly right. Because that was the moment where, sometimes busy women who are doing the most tend not to feel. They tend to just overstuff schedule and overstuff their schedules and overdo it and do the most so that they don't have to feel uncomfortable feelings. And that's definitely what I did. So as soon as I was in an apartment by myself, living alone, single girl in Australia during lockdown, I had a lot of feelings that were super uncomfortable. And so I had to do a lot of that emotional work and also heal my body at the same time. So it was a lot of, getting me off processed foods, but also feeling feelings. And it was really uncomfortable, but it kind of led to this whole new life for me. I don't feel like I fully stepped into myself until after doing that work. Like, as far as the leader I was at work, getting promoted, getting a new job, filling spin classes, like there was just this whole next level that I unlocked once I healed myself.
What was it like for you? You're in Australia. Melbourne is the most locked down city in the world, actually. Like, it's not even just in Australia. Like, it was, I think that I can only presume that across the globe, people heard about Melbourne. And how much lockdown there was over such a long period of time. We're talking, years. And you're there on your own, having to sort of face this inner work. What was that like for you? And how did you cope?
At first, it was difficult because I'm a very social person. I love packing my schedule with, multiple exercise classes and a brunch and a music festival. And I obviously love being around people. I'm very much an extrovert. So it was really uncomfortable. And then came the more strict part of lockdown where we couldn't even be out of our house for more than an hour, which was really difficult for me as a very active. I mean, it was difficult for everyone, but being very active and not someone who naturally gravitates towards Netflix and chill, it was very uncomfortable for me. So, but it's also, it required that I rise and do things a little bit differently. And it was disruptive for me in a good way. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't had the requirement of physically slowing down.
Almost like a gift from what I can hear. Like I can hear that there was a real gift in that started you on a trajectory that would change everything forevermore.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. What are some of the qualities that you've needed, because you've now transitioned out, of your corporate job after, 12 years, it's a 12-year career. It's nothing to sneeze at. What do you reckon some of the qualities, the biggest things that you've needed to cultivate or create with inside of yourself to be able to make this transition from safety in your job to stepping out and serving others?
Self-assurance was probably the first one. Just knowing that I have the capability and capacity to support myself and to generate income and to provide impact to people. I didn't know what that was going to be. I always knew I wanted to own a business, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And I was kind of spinning my wheels at corporate, making a decent salary. So why would I change? And, I don't come, my parents are both ministers. So I don't come from a family that's particularly wealthy. And, I think, God always looked after us. We always had our basic needs met, but we didn't always have our wants met. I didn't have a lot of things that I wanted growing up. And so leaving, my whole life, I went to college and got jobs, and I got on this little train that moves straight towards a corporate career, and got 12 years down the line and was like, I'm not sure this is what I really want. Yes, I have the safety that I didn't necessarily have growing up of just having the finances to support some of the things that I didn't have. But I mean, it wasn't miserable, but it also wasn't what I knew I was put on this planet for. And so that's when I started to, going through my own healing journey. I kind of fell into health coaching because I started coaching friends and family, and they started getting amazing results. And then it kind of word of mouth spread, and all of a sudden I was like, oh no, there's too many of you. So I put them into a group program, and then it just started scaling from there. So I think self-assurance and confidence, obviously being the theme of this podcast, it's so critical, but you have to have faith that you're going to be sorted out and know that things are going to work out. Everyone makes decisions from fear, myself included, and knowing when you're in that space and when you can and should take a risk is a skill, like knowing when to do that and how to do it. I think a natural hustle has always been a big part of my character, and for better or for worse, it got me into certain places, but now I'm working on healing that part of myself still. I tend to overwork. I tend to, now that I've just pivoted away from my corporate career and I'm focusing on my business full time, I could sit here and work for 13 hours a day without even getting up. And so I'm trying to infuse more joy and, things that just make me feel good throughout the day, as opposed to just rooting my worth in what I produce.
Yeah. I just want everyone to feel that for a moment, rooting your worth in what you produce. I mean, that's it. It is 2024 society, right? Like over the years, I heard Jerry Seinfeld speaking the other day, and just on a reel, and he goes, I don't know, man. He goes, in the 80s, it wasn't how much money you made, it was how cool your job was. And he goes, so, we were comedians, and we got paid to be comedians, or we were able to get by being comedians, and no one asked how much we were making from it. It wasn't a conversation. It was, wow, your job is cool. You get to do something that's cool. And it was such a fascinating shift of perspective from him, because he's like, somewhere along the lines, it became more interesting or more appealing of like, cool, you do something that you love, but how are you making money doing it? rather than, oh, wow, you get to do something that you love. You get to do something that you're good at. You get to do something that serves the world. This conversation around money, and I know that we need it, don't get me wrong, and I'm not limiting us in our access to abundance from our thinking perspective. But at the same time, like, what if we were following our heart's desires, living the kind of life that we want to live, but maybe wasn't earning as much as we maybe would in the corporate job? I think that many of us could go with learning that lesson of, hang on a second, let's just not look at financial wealth, but lifestyle wealth. How much free time do you have? How much leisure time do you have? How much time do you have to connect with friends in the middle of the day, to go do the things that you want to go do? That can be something that a business can afford you if for a while, potentially, you're willing to take a bit of a pay cut. What was that leap like for you? Or I know it's fairly recent. You know, there's been a leap of faith for you. What's that been like to... You've been hustling, side hustle, and now you're transitioned into being in your business full time. What's the leap been like internally for you?
Oh, so many wobbles, Luna, like so many wobbles. Like I hired a coach to kind of help me become the person who could be an entrepreneur. And that was certainly helpful to just have a perspective of another entrepreneur who had done this and been in my shoes and could give me some guidance and give me some mentorship. But whoa, it was lonely. It was a lot of nights by myself, a lot of turning down drinks and trips away with friends so that I could focus on my business. Because the reality is, I'm living in Sydney in an apartment. I can't just quit my job and move home with my parents right now. So having a really strong plan in place and proof of concept and trust in myself that I could keep this ball rolling and keep this train moving and provide for myself was really important. But it's also interesting because I didn't actually hate my corporate job. It was not something that I was trying to get away from. I was an e-commerce director at a publicly traded company, and I hired my team from scratch, and they were amazing. Like, I love being a team leader. I loved, coaching young employees and having a big team and having a big commercial target. Like, that was fun for me. But I just know that the results that I was getting women in my side hustle were just changing lives. And I was like, I can't serve women at scale if I continue to do this. It's going to be a little grassroots thing and I'll help someone here and there. Or I could go all in on this, trust it's going to work, and take all of the skills that I learned in corporate, lift them and put them into this and really see where this can go.
And it sounds like you're doing it too.
I'm trying. Here we go. I'm 2 weeks in. Ask me in a couple months.
Well, yes. And look, I love what you said about the wobble and the wobbles. Again, if we speak to that little technical situation that we had a few minutes back, it's like, I think it's so important for us to speak about the wobbles.
Yeah.
Like the uncertainty, the doubt that, like, to live a life of your dreams is not for the faint-hearted. I remember a coach mentor said that to me back, like 14 years ago when I did my coach training. And it floored me, Chelsea. I was like, hang on, what do you mean? Like, it completely changed my perspective so much that here 14, 15 years later, I'm continuing to tell people this because I had always assumed that people who had a great life or a life of their dreams or were doing, following their heart, it was because it was easy. Has it been easy for you to completely transform your health, completely transform the way that you see yourself and process food, and now to be able to pay that forward?
No, it was not easy at all. And I think anytime change happens, it is uncomfortable. It's just there's people who realize it's supposed to be uncomfortable and push past that point of discomfort and decide that the change is good. And there's the people who stay where they are. And you kind of have to choose which one you want to be, right? And so for me, like, this entire trend, like, obviously healing myself was difficult. But I wish I had done it sooner. And it's the same with this, where it has been really challenging to get out of my job, but I have no regrets. And I wish I had done it sooner now that I'm on the other side of it. And so knowing what I would say to people who are kind of in my position is, what problem can you help people solve? Like, what result do you have that other people maybe don't, that you don't realize that you have this result, but that's not normal. For example, I have a brother who is really funny and he does stand-up comedy. I'm like, go teach people how to be funny. Like, what is that thing for you where you have a result that other people would pay for? And go do
Yes.
that, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And recognize the value in your wisdom.
Yeah.
In that sense, like whatever you have overcome. And I know that many people right now sitting there go, I haven't overcome anything. And I say nonsense.
Mm.
You know, my mum's in her early 70s and she, you know, I was going to say she's a product of me. She hangs around with me long enough to kind of, you know, that I rub off on her in terms of the way that I see the world and all that kind of jazz. And over the years, she's realized how capable she is more and more because she's like, oh, I'm not very capable. You know, I always just delegated things to the man. And I was like, Mum, you literally raised 5 children. Like you raised 5 children and you had a business. You know, and she's like, oh, no, but, you know, the men looked after the business. I'm like, you know, I just made all the sales and did all the admin. I was like, what do you think it is? You know, so it's like that. Like, I really want everybody to not undervalue your life experience and your wisdom. As you said, you've got a brother who is funny. Can you break that down? Like, can you figure out how to make that transferable?
Mm.
And you might have to bluster your way through, you know, like to figure out like, oh, okay, because that works or that doesn't work or, you know, that just applies to me or that applies to other people. Is that how you've kind of formulated your programs and your coaching and the way that you do things? You have to figure out if it works just on you or if it works en masse for other people.
I think you have to find the result that you have and then form a methodology around how you did it and then test it. Like I ran a beta test for 10 women who were similar to me, and the results were astounding, like in less than 30 days. So as soon as I did that, I had huge confidence that this could be something I could scale and help more women with. And the ambition eventually is like, once I scale this to be bigger, I want to do, you know, because health coaching is it's a very privileged thing to do, right? And I want to help people who can't afford to do health coaching. So scaling some kind of program for those people who need this help and need this service as well is something that I'm very interested in. But it's interesting because sometimes you have to make the money first before you can do that more charitable work. You kind of have to you have to have the resources to do it.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I was speaking to a client just this morning about it. And, you know, very often my clients are in healing businesses. You know, they want to serve, they want to pay it forward. And they're sitting there going, oh, yeah, but I want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. And I'm like, well, the only way that you can do that is by making your own bed. Yes. Like if you can't put food on your own table because you keep giving everything away, then your level of impact is diminished. So you need to go, cool, I'm going to go work with the clients who can afford to work with me at full price so that then you have money to spare, so that you have surplus, so that you can then develop programs for people who are less fortunate, that don't have the privilege to be able to access this life-changing work. It's so important, right?
That's exactly right. And it's funny, especially in a religious community, for example, like me being raised by ministers. The way I thought about it was like, you know, they're servants of God. They do the Lord's work. You know, it's greedy to be charging for your services. You should be doing everything for free because, you know, we would spend summers in Africa volunteering at orphanages and not being paid. Obviously, it's volunteer work. And so in my mind, it was always just, this should be a free service. And I had to get to the point where it's like, no, the people who can pay for this have to, because if they don't pay, they don't pay attention. And then there is a different level of work that you can do with people who can't afford it, and you can genuinely help them as well.
Yes. Yeah. And even if you go back to the ministry, if you go back to church, you know, the reason why your family could afford to go to Africa and take that time off is because they did some stuff with their money. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And the reason why the church is able to grow and develop and bring more, you know, more sheep into the flock, so to speak, is by taking tithing, you know, is by having money. That when we have that money, I think that money can be really tied to, as you say, greed and evil. And it's like, No, we have to see it as a tool, a very helpful tool. And don't we want people who have the mindset of service to be the ones that have access to more money so then they can do good with it?
That's exactly
the very same mentor who told me about the dreams is that money is a magnifier. You just become more of who you already are when you get money. And so if you're evil and cruel and greedy, you'll probably be more like that. And if you are kind and generous and forthcoming, then you'll be more of that.
I love that. I've never heard it said like that. It makes so much sense.
Doesn't it? Money's a magnifier. What is for you, Chelsea, like what's not in terms of what's next, but what maybe a challenge are you navigating currently in your life right now, and how are you working on overcoming that?
I'm still thick in the transition of scaling my business. So that's what I'm laser focused on right now. I'm also figuring out where to live for the rest of my life. And is that going to be Australia? Yeah. Is it going to be America? You know, I work with a lot of American clients who desperately need this work. And that's where I think a bulk of my business will thrive and where I'll be able to help people best. But I also love my life in Australia. So I'm working through that at the moment. And I do believe you land exactly where you're meant to land and the path becomes clear. But right now I'm just wobbling all over the place trying to figure it out.
Yes, maybe wobble. I want to highlight for everyone. I mean, as a reflection to you, Chelsea, and also to all the listeners, I want everybody to hear how certain Chelsea is. I want everybody to hear the level of certainty, the level of faith, the level of backing yourself, like the self-assurance that comes through. You clearly know your stuff. You're, confident in what you deliver and what you've overcome and what you know. And hear me loud and clearly, audience members, she wobbles. She's wobbling. She's in the thick of it. You can have these two realities at the same time. You can have this reality of, I do know my stuff. I am backing myself. And have the wobbles of, okay, well, I need to figure out how to make this work. It's completely expected. And if we expect if we expect that we are going to wobble and that's part of the deal and that's how we actually gain our balance back, like that's how we figure it out, we're not going to diminish ourselves and go, oh, okay, cool, well, I'm wobbling, so therefore I must not believe in myself. You can have both. And Chelsea, you are a fine example of walking that line of complete certainty of faith and faith in yourself with self-assurance while recognizing that you're needing to overcome challenges and figure it out along the way. So well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. So for you, we've spoken a lot. You're a corporate dropout. You've turned hormone health coach for high achieving women. For yourself, if you have a look at that, you became the person you needed for you. And now you're passing that on. You were busy, you were driven, you wanted to look and feel amazing fast without the cardio or the fad diets, still keeping your chocolate. You figured out how to do it by alleviating hormone and gut imbalances, and now you move that forward. You're an integrative health practitioner, level 2, with clients from anywhere, Sydney to Amsterdam to New York. And you work with clients remotely through functional medicine, lab testing, and targeted protocols. The Healthy Hustle method, love it. It's a holistic health coaching program designed to deliver rapid results by fixing root causes of imbalances in the body that are common in the high-performing women that you look after. Stressful roles. You've done lots of amazing things. You have got lots of incredible results for your clients. How can we work with you if we wanted to?
I offer 2 programs for those high-performing women, and there are, if you do have men in the audience, I do work with some men as well. But I have a 3-week boot camp that's really focused on dialing in nutrition using hormone-friendly nutrition strategies. That's for people who, that want some quick wins, that maybe they have an event coming up where they want to lose some weight and start to increase their energy, improve their sleep. That's kind of a short and sweet little boot camp. I also have a 6-month signature program for women who are really ready for that next level of healing. They want to expand, they want to grow, they want to heal. And the women in that program are getting pretty crazy results. It's anywhere from, it's about 10 pounds is average weight loss in the first month. Across the 6 months,
which is what in Australia?
Ooh, that's about 4 kgs.
4 kilos?
Yeah, 4 to 5 kilos.
Yeah.
And then usually about, 12 to 15 kilos towards the end of the program, depending on what people's weight loss goals are. And so, it's obviously typically with these hormone imbalances, I do see a lot of weight issues, but there's a whole segment of people who are in there for feeling anxious. They're in there for dealing with gut issues, trying to decrease symptoms of burnout or bloating or whatever that is. So it could be for any number of issues.
Fantastic. I love this. I'm going to put everything, the way that you are able to connect with Chelsea, into the show notes, and go give her a follow on Instagram. Yeah. So Chelsea, what is your Instagram handle?
It's Healthy with Chels, CHELS, Healthy with Chels.
Love it. Healthy with Chels. So again, all that's going to be in the show notes. So if you are curious, and I'm sure that most of you listeners will be, please go give her a follow, like her content, support her content, and get amongst, because she's done incredible things in her life. She's living a life by design for her own health, and also from her corporate job, following her dreams. She didn't hate where she was. She just knew that there was something bigger and more meaningful for her. So go give Chelsea a follow, give her a listen. Chelsea, thank you for being here. I am so thrilled to have this conversation with you and to hear your journey, and your authenticity and your truth comes through so beautifully. And I thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was absolute pleasure.
So welcome. If you could sum up living life on your terms in just 5 words, what would they be?
Do what you love and can help other people.
Love it. Love it. Do what you love, serve. That's how I'm going to make it in the 5. Can I make the amendment? Do what you love, serve. It's been such a pleasure. For those of you listeners, if you haven't already, go and hit that button, that follow, subscribe button. I know everybody on the podcast always tells you to do it. Why do they tell you to do it? Why do we ask you to do this? Is because, we know that the major podcasts in the world are getting, even then, Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, has 25% of people that actually listen to the podcast subscribe. And the more subscribers that he gets, it's one of the biggest podcasts in the world, the more subscribers that they get, the bigger the podcast becomes, and then the guests become, even more high profile, more high production, all that kind of stuff. So if you love the show, if you get value out of it, leave me a rating, leave a review. What it does is allow this show to have even more value, make it even more amazing and accessible to many, many more people. Because after all, Chelsea's coming in her own time. It's a free opportunity for people to learn and to grow and to get access to information. So hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you haven't already, you do know, my lovely audience, that there are 2 books. My second baby came out this year, Get Happy and Free, Unlocking the Happiness Code, and my first baby, Perfectly Imperfect, Your Complete Guide to Loving Yourself and Loving Your Body. Go check out those. You can follow me on the Instagram at Lunaria Gaia. If you're curious about my products, my programs, and my coaching, head to lunariagaia.com. It's been wonderful to have Chelsea here. A huge thank you. You can find all her details in the show notes. And until next time, may you have the courage to follow your heart, and you could get as lucky as Chelsea. See you, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the More Confidence with Luna Gaia podcast. I hope you feel more confident, more self-assured, and ready to go tackle the world's problems and maybe kick ass in some of your dreams. If you haven't already, I would love for you to like and subscribe, follow, and maybe leave a review so that other people know how to find this awesome podcast too. If you're wanting to sink your teeth into something even more juicy, my #1 best-selling book, Perfectly Imperfect, Your Complete Guide to Loving Yourself and Loving Your Body, is now available on all good bookstore sites, both in print, digital, and I narrated it for Audible as well. If you think that coaching or maybe one of my courses is for you, why not head to www.moreconfidence.com.au and get in touch and see if we can talk. And of course, you can find me all across the social medias. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, which is where you're probably listening now, or maybe even here on the podcast platform. Sending you big love and wishing you a beautiful day.